Hey there. Hey there. Thank you guys for coming to our next installment of The Spirit Led Wife, our book study. We're on week 4. I am Dr. Angela Carswell, the author of this gem, and I really appreciate you logging in and checking in with us as we go through this journey. We are on week 4, and with that, we have talked about the base of our foundation is a spiritual one as we begin with Nurture the Soul. And that includes words of assurance, easy smiles, open heartedness, respect of God, and feminine voice. If those topics seem like something you need to get into, you can find the book on Amazon and YouTube. So just go back and look at the previous YouTubes. Then we met with Tabi Upton, and she spoke about, and we talked about briefly, the idea of support your spouse or support a spouse and support your husband. So that also broken into 5 major areas is sexually fit, joyfully helpful, active listener. Ladies, we get a bad rap for not being good listeners, being accepting, and being a lifelong learner. As we support ourselves and the thing living in this life, being a lifelong learner is kind of important. And so I'm hopeful and glad that you're here because that is part of, hopefully, while you're here, is that lifelong learner. Just understanding what the word says and how we can apply it in our lives in a modern and meaningful way. Today, we have with us a special guest, Erika Madison, and we're going to be talking about nurture the family and what that means. So I'm happy that she's here, and I will be bringing her on in a second. We're just going to open with a quick word of prayer, and we will get going. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us here today. And please fall on our spirits, convict our spirits in the ways that we can grow in your word and grow as a light among others, among the darkness. We pray that you would guide our speech and be the reason and the way that lives are transformed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, all right. Let's get moving. We have Erika Madison. Thank you for carving out a little time to chat with us. And let's start by you just telling us a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your foundation? This topic today is about nurturing the family. So, what's your experience with that, just as you were coming up?
Oh, well, awesome. Okay, so coming up, I am the oldest of 8 children in my household. My parents are still married, all raised together. And so that made for an eventful household growing up, of course. And so as a result, I got to be quite a bossy person, that oldest daughter syndrome, we like to call it. So fast forward, I thought when I got married that, listen, we should just have one child, do one well. That's what I told my husband before we got married. He said, absolutely not. So we actually have 7 children. Praise the Most High. They are a blessing. Our oldest is 18, just finished her first year in college, and the youngest is 5 years old.
Okay, so is what is it, 19 to between 19 and 5?
18 to 5.
18 and 5. Okay.
18 to 5.5. He'll be 6.
Okay. Wow. Like that is the one thing that always just amazes me, is how you've the both of you have just really managed to um spread the time out, um still have time for each other, still have time for the kids, and just watching you do that is just it's only two of us, like me and my brother, and then I only
Mhm.
have two. And so to have seven, it's just like, oh my. But you guys make it work. Like, yeah, I am thoroughly always in awe of the whole factory y'all got going on over there.
Well, thank you, thank you. We, I will say, I think our family goes very much against the grain, and so that is definitely key to, I think, helping us manage so much. So I like to say I've been retired for 18 years. I quit work 2 weeks before our oldest was born. And so I've been home with them, and we homeschool. We've homeschooled from the beginning. And so we still homeschool all the kids. As they get older, they'll do co op and um, dual enrollment classes as high schoolers. But really kind of restructuring the way that we learn to do family. And so our focus has definitely been teaching them. The Bible talks about children being arrows. And so our goal has been to aim and direct these arrows that the Most High has blessed us with in the direction that He wants them to go. And so, just that whole shift of me not working, staying home to raise the children, has was a big part of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine so. Well, great. And what's your like family background, like your generationally?
Generationally, so you mean as far as like my household growing up?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yes, like
Like
I
your
said, my
parents,
parents.
grandparents.
Yeah, so my grandparents on my mother's side, they were married, had 8 children together, and then there was an older child that my granddad had, and so they were always together. Raised their kids on the farm. It's still in the family, so they grew everything, had animals, and all that good stuff. And I
Okay.
think only the probably the younger kids went to college. The older ones, learned a trade. Um, did what my granddad did, that type of thing. And my father's side, um, he has a couple of brothers and several like step brothers and sisters, but um, his parents were never married. Um, and so my parents have always been married. So
Hmm.
they got married, before having kids, and they're still married. And
Hmm.
so, and praise the Most High, like I've been married 21 years now. Can't believe that.
Woo-hoo.
Like,
I know.
wow.
Sometimes it's one of those things where you can't say it's flying by, but you definitely don't realize how much time is passing until you actually like do the math and you're like, whoa, okay.
Right.
Yeah, so
It's
there's a
amazing.
legacy, especially on your mom's side, like the
Hmm.
female side is definitely one that it seems like that legacy is kind of passed down those values,
Yes.
so to speak.
And I know
Um,
my parents both had like strong family value. Like my dad wanted to have a cohesive family. He's very family oriented, and I know that it bothered him to not probably have family close. Like if you are family, he's there for you. He's gonna support you and be there. So he's very family focused.
okay, awesome. Okay, well, we're gonna get into that a little bit more in just a moment. Um, we're in chapter 5 in our book study of 8. Um, so the day is focusing on nurture the family.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to read from the intro just for a moment. Building stronger family units through refining what it means to be a wife through the Spirit is the foundation of this book. Seeing examples of marriage partnerships with loving leadership and fellowship is on the horizon. And I am so glad that it is finally here. Like my algorithm is shifting, and I see more and more people, young people, advocating for marriage, advocating for celibacy, advocating for respect with one another, choosing partners, and those sorts of things. It's not about being under a man's thumb or becoming a second class citizen because we've been there, done that. It's about restoring the conviction that creates biblical balance at home and in our communities. It's about the reciprocity that affords you the opportunity to comfortably be lead nurturer for your home as the Holy Spirit is for our souls. So I hope we're ready for that conversation. Our leading and guiding scripture for this particular chapter is 1 Peter 2:9. And it says, but you are a chosen people. So, as that, we are a family of God. We are Jesus's family, and we're family with one another. So, as I read this, like that's kind of my mindset in reading this particular verse. Like, you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness and into the wonderful light. And a lot of times here culturally, we have a lot of darkness in our families. Like there's so many homes that are built from divorce, they're built from abandonment, they're built from toxicity, narcissism, like all those key buzzwords that we have. And how are we going to kind of infuse lightness? And one of the things that you touched on briefly was the fact that even though your dad was from a divorced family or never married, or he actually made a conscious decision to value that and to make sure that like whatever I need to do um, to make this a priority, that's what my priority is in building with your mom or his wife. So kudos to him. Kudos to him. And I've
Yes.
met them. They're cute. They're a cute couple. So, um, in this week, we studied Ruth. There's a brief case study about each wife that is in each section. Well, each woman that's in each section. The first section, Support the Soul, was about Mary Magdalene. And then the second one was about Hannah. And so today we're going to talk briefly about Ruth, and then we'll get
Mhm.
into the 5 tenets of the chapter. Cool with that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So when we look at Ruth, had you kind of looked at Ruth? Like I know you do a lot of study. Have you studied Ruth and have opinions about Ruth and her journey with Boaz?
Oh, yes, yes. We enjoy the story of Ruth.
Yeah. So a couple of things that are brought out in the in the chapter is that Ruth's first husband had died, and
Mhm.
so she is without covering in this day and time. She's without covering of a husband. And so she strikes out with her mother in law. And
Yes.
so that right there, even though the chapter is about family, and we normally think of children when we think of family, Ruth strikes out with her mother in law, and they decide that they're going to um, find provision together. And so her mom ends up being a great sounding board for her, much
Mhm.
like what you have talked about and described with your lineage of women and wives in your own family, directing one another. And I'm wondering, it doesn't say like what their conversation was, but do you recall like having conversations about being a wife and mom with your mom, or did it just kind of fall into place? Or
Oh man.
and
I'll be
then
honest.
the other part of that coin is like, do you have conversations, because you've got two daughters,
Yes,
do you have, I know one's kind of young, but have you kind of got in that mindset of like having those types of conversations?
I have. I have. And I think that brings up an interesting point that I've observed in my own family and others is that as we go through this life, when we've had traumas and setbacks. You know, I mentioned that my dad's family parents were never married, but that was something that was important to him. Um, as we have a mindset, I find, to do better than our parents did, and so forth and so on. Sometimes our good intentions are hindered by the fact that we got some things that need to be healed, need to be flushed out, need to be dealt with. And I know that was the case for me. I entered into marriage. I'm a big fan of First Peter 3. I use it a lot in conversation with other young ladies.
Okay. And
And
what is that
it
normally?
it speaks about submission, being submitted to our husbands, and even brings up Sarah and how she called Abraham Lord. So that was my scripture. I was like, I'm going to be a submissive wife, all this stuff. It took me some years to get there. I told you I was bossy. I was the oldest of eight, so I was bossy,
No,
bossing
no.
everybody around and
Say it's not so.
controlling and controlling. So it took some time for the Most High to really show me myself. So those places that were broken, were not quite submitted to Him, could be better. And so to answer your question, my mom's very quiet and soft spoken. So we didn't have as many of those conversations. And so I do intentionally try to have those conversations with my daughter's expectations and so forth, especially against, since we're trying to go against the grain and not do things the way culture dictates, but more the way the Bible dictates, and we're looking at the whole Bible.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. And that's that. I mean, you say your mom was very quiet. Honey, my mom is not quiet. And we didn't have those conversations really. Like it just,
Um,
like generationally, I just think
mhm,
it wasn't even a thing. And even now, like sometimes you'll find, young, my daughter's 29. And so, I end up being the community mom a lot of the times.
mhm,
And so even talking to her friends, like you would think like, oh, okay, it's a different generation. They're going
mhm,
to be a little bit more assertive in discussions or, those types of things. Not so
mhm.
much, not so much, you know.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that kind of made me really want to write this book and it to be impactful.
Oh, that's awesome. We do need that. I do believe that epigenetics, or generational trauma, is a very real thing. So sometimes we are dealing with a attitude, a spirit, a belief, an idea that's really deep rooted, that's really kind of been passed down to us. Um, so in the Bible, in the Ten Commandments, it says the sins of the father are visited upon the son to the third and the fourth generation. So sometimes some of the strongholds and things we're dealing with, it's not because we did something
Right,
directly, it's
right,
things that have been passed down to us, and we may not even be aware of it. And the Bible also teaches us to repent for those things so that we can be healed.
right, right. Yeah. So very good points. Very good points. And so I'm thankful for you for bringing those up scripturally. So Naomi and Ruth are kind of making their way, and Ruth understands that she's got to feed them. So she basically finds a farm and is um, decides to harvest the scraps and
Yes.
collect those in order to subsidize how they live. And it ends up being Boaz's farm. Well, when the drama and the intrigue, the love story
Hmm.
behind this. So it ends up being Boaz's farm, and but she, a lot of I know you're not on social media much, but there's a whole thing about having a soft life these
Okay.
days. And so when I look at one of the things that Ruth is very valued for is that she is noted to be like a hard worker.
Hmm.
She's noted to be like have some ingenuity about herself. And she also listens to the counsel of Naomi, and follows her lead, as her mentor, in this way. So, and I know, it sometimes is one of those things that's lost in the culture, because we do have so many, like, I have an office job, and this and that, and I'm going to get a mani pedi, and just all the things that people do to spend time. And a lot of times that Proverbs 31, if you look deeply in that, that lady is hustling,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, she's bringing good to her household and increasing her household, not just uh, benefiting.
Right. Yeah. So the case study of Ruth, leads us into these 5 points that we have.
Hmm.
Um, the first one, excuse me,
Hmm.
the first one is healthy eating. Um,
Mm.
and some of these topics, as they relate to, being a spirit led wife, um, and even woman, healthy eating. What is your take on that as it regards to family?
Oh, okay, friend. I have a lot to say on that one. So, funny story. My husband, when he was, praying for his wife, one of the things he wanted was someone who would be focused on health because he knew that he wouldn't. And so I've said to him many a times since that you really should be careful what you pray for. Um, Early in our marriage, before we even had kids, and we both worked downtown Nashville, we would ride to work together. And he'd pick me up after work, and I'd say, "Guess what I was reading about today?" Because I would have downtime, and he was like, "Okay, what can I not eat now?"
What is
But I
it?
was just discovering all these additives and things that were in the food
Right.
that were not good for us, things that were very common to us, and we trust because it's common, and realizing, oh man, this is causing disease and causing people to be unhealthy. We need to shift that. So, yeah, healthy eating is very important to me. So I heard the Most High speaking when we were in our first house and we had little ones. Teach your children how to grow their own food. And so ever since then, I've been trying to garden, and we are living on a farm now so that we can grow our own food. I need to go out and harvest the squash now. So I've been working in the garden before we gathered for this meeting
Hmm.
today, and so that is one of my passions. There's a lot of things for myself, my husband, our family that we try to avoid. A lot of man-made things that are linked to cancer and diabetes and different things like that that we find very common. But if we go back in history, there's a time where these diseases were not a part of our culture, not a part of our health concerns. They
Right.
have been acquired over time, and I'm just not content to say, "Oh well, everyone else is doing it." I want to be healthy. I want my children to know how to be healthy, um, so that not just we can live long, but that we can live prosperous lives. Like I don't want to be sick. I don't want someone having to take care of me. I want to be 90 still able to garden in my garden because I'm
Mm.
strong and I'm healthy.
Right. Right. One of the well, two things, and I do see more, congregations have, pay more attention to food these
Hmm.
days than probably 20 or whatever years ago.
Hmm.
So that's a good thing that it is
Yeah.
kind of being brought in alignment. But biblically speaking, one of the things that, like, have had kind of a similar journey where it's like, wait a minute, this, like, gluten, what is that? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like, we didn't have gluten, coming up, because I don't even know what that was, where it came
Well,
from.
actually, gluten is a component of wheat. So, so if you
It
eat
is.
wheat, grown naturally, it's going to have gluten in it. They do separate gluten and like add it to things, sell it separately, and so forth. And
And
then
I
there
think
are
that's
people,
probably where the problem lies, is in all
yeah,
of that manipulation of the
oh yeah,
wheat. And
and
so,
the
and then having
pesticides. So
GMO
like,
wheat.
I
Huh?
think a lot of people become intolerant to it, not just because gluten's bad,
It's
the
just
Bible
so
tells
much
us
of
to
it.
have our daily bread, but because of the Roundup and the glyphosate and all that that's in our food that we is toxic to us.
Look, I done hit a nerve. It's right out the gate.
I told you.
I mean, and that's fine. Look, I'm just going by the order of the book, child. I'm just going by the order of the book. So look, you probably gonna get your toes stepped. Somebody's gonna get their toes stepped on another place
Uh-oh.
too.
I don't want to step
Um,
on any toes, but
well, we need it. We need it. But I mean, biblically, like, food is supposed to be the only thing that there was, and it was good. We were good. It was good.
Mhm.
We didn't have all these situations. So, going back to natural foods and growing foods,
Mhm.
I think is what is called for. But this verse I found interesting. If your brother or sister, and then in parentheses, I put husband or child, is
Mhm.
distressed because of what you eat, you are no longer acting in love. Do not by your eating destroy someone for whom Christ died. And I don't know that as women, wives, and I say that, I'm sure it's a generalization, but like, do we think of the impact of how we eat? And I know you do, but just in general, as the culture goes, like, that should be one of those things that, like, if you love your husband, you should be feeding him a certain way. If you love
Yeah.
and respect your children, you should be feeding them a certain way.
Yeah.
Granted, it takes time. It takes, in my estimation, it takes more time than money, because it's
It
not,
does.
I don't think, any more expensive really, but it does take more time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I find that it's expensive to buy all the packaged, especially with a large family, to buy enough of processed and packaged things to be
for
to feel
everybody to fill up
everyone.
everybody. Hmm.
Right. Than to buy whole, and I buy things, some things in bulk. I buy 50 pounds of some things in bulk, which is a whole lot cheaper than going to the grocery store,
Right.
even Walmart. Um, but yeah, I
Hmm.
would definitely agree with you. I think and for my family, we have gone back, as I said, looked at the whole Bible. Like the Most High gave us a blueprint of how to eat. Now, this may step on some toes. I won't get into the
And
weeds.
that once took a minute or two, and that was it.
I won't get into the weeds, but I think any of us, if we stop and looked at some of the things he said were clean, unclean, good, not good for us to eat, we're all generally pretty aware of certain things that are considered unclean actually being unhealthy. They lead to higher cholesterol, heart disease, things like that. And there's a reason for that. We're supposed to eat good stuff, we're not supposed to eat garbage. So, the animals he created to eat the garbage and the waste, he said, don't eat those. They're full
Hmm.
of garbage.
Hmm.
There are healthier things for us to eat. And because, I think for us, I think our people ate healthy like that before we were shipped to a different place. And when we came here, you know, we had to eat what we were given, and we were given those things that were often those things that
Hmm.
are considered unclean, to the point now it's become a delicacy. And even though it's harming us and it's killing us, it's hard for people to let
Let it
those things
go.
go.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many different ways to eat, and
Hmm.
I'm thankful that people are being led to trying different things, eating different things, whether it's pescatarian,
Hmm.
vegetarian, even intermittent fasting or fasting.
Yes.
So yeah, so there is a section on healthy eating, and I knew that we would agree on that one.
Yes.
Um, so the next section is assertive nurturing. What does that look like for you? I know you've got kids of different ages, and so it's probably some, it's going to be a very different thing between the 5-year-old and the 19-year-old. But, um,
Yes.
as the lead nurturer, what do you feel like? How do you kind of navigate that assertive nurturing piece?
Okay. First thing that comes to my mind is that I am not trying to be my children's friend. And so I think that's a big thing in culture from the time they're born. We're trying to make them love us and like us. And so there's a lot of things that I think the assertiveness kind of goes out the door sometimes because I want, Billy to be happy and to like me and so forth. And so
Mhm.
my husband and I, like, we've not made it our goal for our children to we don't want our children to hate us. We love our children. We have a good time together, but we're
Look,
not trying to be
don't
their
put the
buddy.
phone
Like
down.
we're
Don't start calling child services.
exactly, exactly. So I'll give you an example. We've been having some, just with our young adults, our adolescents, some trouble with just the talking back and not wanting to do stuff, not showing up. So my husband went and took money out of their accounts in ones to put in jars separately with their names on it. And every time they give pushback, I take $1 and I get to do with the dollar what I want to do with the dollar, which is probably going to
Thank you
be
very
feed
much.
them.
Right.
But and
No,
then at the
no, the
end of
dollar
the
has
week,
to be spent on you.
and
Like,
at the end of the week they can get it, whatever's left they get back. So
okay.
even before he got the money, I could see them shifting, like, oh, wait a minute, let me not ask why do I have to, let
Mhm,
me just cooperate. um
mhm.
so so to answer your question again, going back to assertive parenting, we do, you know we don't beat our kids down, but we do believe in no. I like no. No is a good word. And boundaries and expectations. They have chores. They were out in the garden with me this morning. um and so there are definite expectations, and things were difficult with my oldest child. I told my husband one time, I was like, I don't think the both of us are going to make it.
The
um
what?
I
Oh, the
said I
both of
don't think the both of us are gonna make it because
We're not
she
gonna make it
she
out
was
alive.
right. She was difficult, and I told her one time. I said, "Listen, this is up to you. It can be easy or it can be hard, but I just want you
You
to
can do
know
this the
your
easy way.
father and I win." So and now she's 18. She's in college. We're friends.
In law
She's
school, I
very
might add, like,
open. We have a
on the track to law
lovely
school. Let's not forget that, because I think that kind of feeds that is an offshoot from the argumentative, questioning, debating
yes.
type of behavior. She found her
Right.
niche early in life, let's put it that way.
She did. She was 2, and we were like, "She should probably be a lawyer, but don't tell her." Yeah, and I tell friends, I think just really sticking in there and being consistent, because I told you I was controlling. I was rebellious, difficult child. And my husband said, "Well, what works with you?" Because our oldest was like my mini me, and I was said,
Mhm,
well, just what my parents were consistent with stuck. And
mhm,
so that's been our thing, just being consistent with them,
mhm.
because once they get through this pushback phase, it seems to stick.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Nice to know that, and a lot of times we think of discipline as in disciplining our child, you know,
Hmm.
taking things away, spanking, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But discipline isn't, it's just consistency. And
Yes.
so I'm glad that you were an active listener when you guys had that conversation.
Yeah,
He was like, "Girl, you were bossy back in the day. What worked?"
I was.
Okay. We are halfway through. So the next one is is solutions oriented.
Hmm.
So when we look at solutions oriented, Um, how does solutions oriented fit in with also your idea of submissiveness? Because I know, that most of the time when we talk about submissiveness, it's like not having your own way, um, not being disagreeable, not being argumentative, going with the
Mhm.
flow. But
Mhm.
then there's solutions oriented. So,
Mhm.
we're both thinking women. We both have insights. How do those things work together in your mind?
Yeah. I think about another part in the book where it talks about being a, a joyfully helpful. I
Hmm.
really appreciated that part of the book where um, you gave like three simple ways to be joyfully helpful: lowering our voice, um, smiling when you respond, and keeping your eyebrows low, like not raising that eyebrow and with the smirk, like you know. Um,
That last one is the one that always gets people because they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Have you ever tried to really talk loud but have your eyebrows down? Like it's almost impossible. Like
yes,
it is almost impossible to either talk loud and have your eyebrows down, or
yeah,
talk softly and have your eyebrows up. Like it just feels very counterproductive. So
yes.
I'm glad that was.
So
I'm glad that hit home.
it did. So I think what I can say about that is reining in our emotions, because we can be very driven by our emotions, and how something makes me feel may dictate how I respond. Um, and so, if I rein in my emotions, the trigger stimulus is still there, but I may choose to respond in a different way, which gets me a different response. So,
Mm,
an example comes to mind. We were doing some remodeling, and my husband, we were going to save some money, and I do the drywall mudding. And I was like, I am not good at this, and it's a lot of space. So 2 days I worked on it. 8 hours the first day, I think, and 7 hours the second day, and I was still in the 10 by 10 room. Hadn't even got out to the other area. And in my head, I was getting frustrated. And I was getting frustrated with him because I wanted to pay someone to do this, and I've got kids I got to take care of. I'm in this room all day. And then the spirit spoke to me and brought me down a notch. It's like, okay, you're getting frustrated. And it totally shifted my mindset. So instead of being short, snappy with him, I just went and said, hey, I've been working really hard on this, 8 hours yesterday, 7 hours today, and I am still not done. Like, I am all for saving some money, but I just don't think I can do this. I need help. And he
mhm,
said, okay, we can hire someone.
mhm.
And so the problem was I needed help, and we needed to get this job done. I didn't think I could do it. So the solution would be, let's come to an agreement on how we can get this done. And so being short, snappy, and frustrated with him because I done spent all this time, he made me do this, blah blah blah, would have just frustrated him and caused a rift, opposed to me just humbly going and saying, hey, this is not working, I need help,
And
which
that
is
takes time. Yeah. It takes
mm-hmm,
time to learn how to do that. And now because I've written the book and read the book and talked to people about the book, like you were talking, and then I'm that feminine voice. It's not
mm-hmm,
that, and I think women really miss a big part of this conversation when they
mm-hmm,
shut off immediately with the word submission.
yes,
Because it's not like I know you and you know me. So I can't imagine a world where you're just not going to say anything. Like if it's
yeah,
something either serious or impactful or it affects you or your family, you're not going to be silent. And so it's a matter of, what are the words that I can say because I know him, I know my husband,
mm-hmm,
or it could be anybody, but I know them. how can I fashion this in a way that is going to be received?
Right.
um,
Yes.
Not necessarily lashing out, and that we can, like, I have a solution, hire somebody, but to just go in and say, we gonna hire somebody, that's not the
Right.
way. Like, you need
No.
to, and it takes a while to understand that yin and yang of that,
Mhm.
to actually have that feminine voice where you stop for a minute and actually are reverent, respectful,
Mhm.
but you also still like get your point across. Like, my point is going to be made. It's just
Yes.
how it's going to be made. And is it, I would rather have one conversation and it goes really well, as opposed to me now having to restart this conversation a few times, because
Right.
then he's going to be like, look, I know we already talked about this.
Right.
And that's
Right.
you're right, and that's not the vibe that I want either. Um, so yeah, those solutions, they get said, and how we say them, really makes a big difference. Because I think
Exactly.
women by and large are very, we tend to be accommodating to like
Mm.
this situation, but also like we have ideas of like, okay, this the efficiency the efficiency piece and the organization piece that women are often given, um, has to be conveyed in a way that can be received.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
y'all did
Yeah.
hire
I
somebody. I
think I
just want
think
to be clear.
submission definitely. I'm sorry.
I
I
don't know
think
what you're
submission definitely gets a bad rap these days. A negative connotation that is not the intent. Um, if we think about it, we're all submissive to someone, or we have a hard time in life. If we're on a job and we have a boss, then you know we are submitted to that authority. They're making decisions, but it doesn't mean that those under him don't have some input and have um, you have steps, right? And
saying.
so you get input and insight. They can't be everywhere at one time, and so it's really a flow. It's a team effort that's happening. And so I have things I'm responsible for and things that he's responsible for, and ultimately a whole lot rest on his shoulders. And I am helping a lot, helping him to accomplish those things that he needs
Hmm.
to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Glad you brought that up. Help me. Hmm. Yeah. Where are we? Okay.
Mm,
The next one is calm under pressure.
mm,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, calm under pressure is one of those things when you're dealing with, like you just said, like he's got pressures on his side, I've
Hmm.
got pressures on my side. They're very different pressures, but still, my day is so much a part of what he's doing. And it kind of
Hmm.
supports what he's doing and what the family is doing and what the kids are doing, plus what I personally need to do. So maintaining a space, and a time for me, maintaining a space and a time during the day, where I can be meditative, especially in the morning. And I don't
Hmm.
know if you feel that way when you're gardening in the morning. I notice that you do garden in the morning. Um, like that's one of the things that I like to do in the morning, um, just overall. But when there's things that are going awry, um, being able to um, stand on a good word to like calm myself down,
Hmm.
and to understand, for me it's understanding that like Christ is in control, period, like point blank, period. And so whatever that is coming my way, whatever is coming my family's way, I just have to know that it's going to work in my good, as long as I begin to focus on the most high and figure out like what would he have me to do, What are we able to do? What are the resources he's provided? What is the supervision that we have for this? And just understanding that my priority is family cohesiveness. Um, Under our
Mhm.
Christian umbrella, it's family cohesiveness. And so if I reflect on that, a lot of times I'll be like, okay, I can say this, do this, and it'll alleviate the situation, as opposed to just
Mhm.
having that snap, that snap response, like, are you
Yes.
crazy? So what are your thoughts on that? Or do you have any, with 7 children, husband, your parents live close, relatively close by,
Mhm.
um, and just all the things. How do you put that in perspective? Let's go ahead and continue because Erica has dropped off. Her technology is not, uh, it's not smart right now. So I'm just going to keep talking and hopefully you can hear her. She's on the phone, as opposed to on our live stream. So we're going to wrap it up as quickly as we can. Hopefully that wasn't a sign of any sort. But calm under pressure. Do you have any words on that one?
Um, so what comes to mind is I kind of my saying is I can only control what I can control, and so after I've done all I can, I really have a calm about just letting things go and not being frazzled and overwhelmed. Um, just shaking it off.
Mm-hmm. Good. And that is also understanding, though, that one which rules over everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and lastly is homemaking. This
Yes.
particular one I've had a book study of this before, and this word homemaking apparently was very triggering to some people.
Oh,
Um,
really?
it was. And for me, it just means homemaking just means making your home a comfortable place for whomever is there, whoever you want to be there. So it's not necessarily having your house be like House Beautiful or Style or any of those magazine type of situations, but just understanding that, like, you, someone has to keep up the home.
Yes.
Because it will fall apart, literally and figuratively.
Yes.
And so, like having a comfortable space for yourself to have a space to relax, for your spouse to have a space to relax, and for kids to do the things that kids do, is just important, in building a home.
Yes.
So
Yes.
those, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And, and and that is something that's important to me. My husband laughs at me and says that homeschooling gets in the way of my homemaking.
And it should, like, and that's, because 90% of households do not have a functioning school, elementary, middle, and high school functioning inside of it. So yeah, it's gonna get in it. And then that, which leads us back to calm under pressure. Like, at some point you have to realize that, like, this is my life, these are my blessings, and so I have to reevaluate what my expectation is for the house.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is
Exactly.
eating, the dishes are clean, the clothes are clean.
Yes.
And
And coming up with very creative ways sometimes to motivate those who are not so motivated to make sure that the kitchen is clean and the clothes are put away.
right, that solutions oriented, we're gonna solve it. We're gonna find a
Yes.
way. We're gonna find a way.
Yes, because I'm like, listen, I know I have 7 kids, but my house does not need to look like, oh my gosh, you do have 7 kids. Like, if someone drops in, we need to be able to show hospitality and not be like, okay, can you come back in 10 minutes? Hurry, y'all.
Right, right. Yeah. And that happens with everybody's house. You invite people over and it's like, all right, y'all, we got to get this stuff cleaned up. All right, let's go, because we got
Yes.
company. So this
Yes.
particular chapter, chapter 5, had 3 expansion tasks, and normally we cover these. We're going to go over the chapter 5 expansion and then chapter 6. So chapter 5 is meditate on 1 Timothy 3 and 11 and ask 2 close friends how I react to conflict and unexpected situations. Like, get someone else's objective view, be silent, and listen to what they have to say. Because a lot of times we don't necessarily see ourselves as others do. And
Mhm.
so, if this is a task that speaks to your spirit, test that out and see how it works. See if you're able to really see some inconsistencies between what I inconsistencies between what I want to do versus what I'm actually doing. Because what I want
Mhm.
to do is being a nurturing, soft space for my family to land. But if I'm being like overly assertive, i.e., bossy or argumentative, if I'm being argumentative or loud or whatever, it's going to get in the way of those things. So having an objective person or people kind of chime in might help at least kind of get on a good foot with that one.
Oh yes, I think that's an excellent task. It reminds me of what I was saying earlier of coming into marriage, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be a submissive wife," and then, a few years into it, realizing, "Oh, I'm really not. I really struggle with that because I need to let some things go."
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
Then the second one is commit to moving the needle towards healthier eating styles. And so there's a list in the book on like page, I don't know, 63, that's got over 10 different styles of eating. So wherever
mhm,
you are, just start there. Like, be gentle with yourself, be loving with yourself, and
mhm.
start there and just try and say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 weeks and I'm going to buy this food to eat a little bit healthier, whatever that means for you.
Okay,
I think that's a good thing for people to just try out some things every once in a while to kind of keep those juices flowing.
absolutely.
And then the last one is has most to do with being a homemaker, um, but also like opening up your home and the spirit of your home. And I know you don't have a problem with that because you do host meetings in your home. There's visitors in your home, but I do know when I was single, like that was a thing for me, to where at some point you just get to where I don't know if it's year 2, year 3, year 4, or whatever, but you're not having guests in and out. You're not necessarily having visitors in and out. I didn't routinely and regularly have, well, really at all, have men in my house. And so it becomes a very solitary space where it's
Mm,
almost like if someone comes over, they're almost like an intruder, like it's
mm,
uncomfortable.
mhm.
Like
I
I got to
think this
share
day
the,
and age, a lot of people probably feel that way,
yeah,
and
yeah.
are less comfortable. I had a friend where we used to live. We came back and visited, and I was commenting on the fact that, oh, all these people said they missed us, but nobody asked, hey, where are y'all going to eat? Except people who had we kept in touch with, and they had come to visit us in a
Hmm.
different city. And I had talked to this friend. I said, well, "You would have invited us over, right?" She was like, and she was like, "People just aren't like you." And I was like, "What do you mean?" So she was very. She'd had some experiences that were hurtful to her, and she was very resistant to inviting people in. And she was just sharing that that's more common than just being open and inviting. And I was like, oh, wow,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it is. And when you're in a space of dating, that can be one of those things that you don't even realize, like that trauma, that backlash. Um, you don't really realize that that's what it is. You're just going about your day. You're going to work. You're going to the store. You're going here. You're going there, and you come home, and I'm by myself, and it's fine. But if you really want to invite in a husband, a good friend, a family at some point in time, like you're going to have to share. You're going to have to share
Yes,
your
you are.
space. So leaving room
Yeah.
for that, even though like you may not be married or you may just be dating or whatever, you might be in a state of preparation. Um, get in that mindset of like I am a wife and I'm going to be sharing my space.
Mhm.
And so it's one of those things that in this chapter, it just goes, I think, a long way to an open hearted response to people.
Yes.
In the next chapter, we're going to have Doris come on, and she's going to be talking about the next chapter that is support the program. I don't know if you've ever really sat and talked with Doris at all, Erika,
Oh, have I sat and talked?
with Doris.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay, yeah. She is a delight to talk to, and her husband do a lot in their community as well as supporting not just the community, but supporting him in how he shows up. And so I'm looking forward to Doris coming on. And if you are going to gear up for chapter 6, there are 6 expansion tasks, and I'll just run through these quickly because I normally like to keep these a little bit shorter than this, but we've just been chit chatting, so
Mhm.
so I have appreciated and enjoyed it so much. So I
Me
appreciate
too. Thank you.
coming on. Chapter 6 expansion. If you want to look ahead, one of the expansion tasks on page 87 is understand the ways that either met that understand the ways that people that I have dated either met the challenge or were a disappointment. And what can I learn through my best partnerships about how I see Jesus in others? What can I determine about what makes a good leader for me? Or how can I be a better follower?
Okay.
Okay, number 2, that's a good premarital check, right?
It is.
Number 2, be of service to a friend or family member with a business or household task that requires a new form of organization for me. Um, one time I went on this exploratory mission of staying with my brother for a month. And in that time, like I helped him like organize some things and we had different conversations and things like that. So even as a single person, you have people or if you're even if you're married or whatever the case is, you have people that you can come alongside and see how you perform and how you adjust, how you approach um, being with somebody else and actually organizing something, either a home, a business, or whatever with someone. So volunteering to work with a man working on his passion or purpose is task number 2. Task number 3, we're going to be talking about Zipporah and Moses next time. So task number 3 is channel my inner Zipporah. How can I stretch myself to look on the bright side and begin to say yes to safe experiences that are new for me? And we'll talk about Zipporah's journey a little bit more the next time.
Awesome.
So I so appreciate you coming on and making the time for us. I'm surprised that you have been able to stick with me this long. Like I feel so honored.
Oh, you don't know how much is going on in the
I
background.
know. I
No,
can
it's
only.
an honor to be asked. I appreciate you asking me. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
All righty. Well, we are going to close out. I'm going to let you go, Erika. Thank you again, and you have a great day.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And I hope this discussion is something that you can really get into as something that benefits you, something that speaks to you, something that allows your spirit to grow towards the light of God. and what that means for you and your family, the one now or the one that's coming. So, this book, The Spirit Led Wife, can be found on Amazon. We also have a space on YouTube. Sorry, YouTube and Facebook. So if you are interested in joining us, we will be back next week, I believe, for our next guest, Doris Williams. And we are going to be talking about how to support the plan, a man's plan, God's plan, all of the things. So come back, and thank you for staying with us. If you're here this far, make sure that you like and subscribe. Place a comment or two. All right. Bye bye now.